Hello, and good morning. Welcome to Macro Mondays. It's Monday again. It was a fun weekend. A lot of really good price action over the weekend. So we can quickly have a run through and have a look at what the markets are doing this morning. It's been pretty good. Like anyone who followed the wise men on Friday it was, yeah. We all went long, didn't we? And we caught the bottom. Was probably one of my best trading days of the year on metals that day. Landed a very, very lovely short on palladium, and we all rode gold down quite well. So yeah, let's have a look. So we've got the aptly named Wisberg. This is my new watch list of things for this. So if we go on here, you can have a look. What's the S&P doing this morning? As we see, we're covering slightly. We're having a nice push up. If we break this down onto the 4-hour, what we're looking at, yeah, you can see quite a nice little push up at end of session Friday. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. But if we turn our attention to the UK, what's the UK doing? We can see a nice little push up. I actually think this is in quite a nice position. Obviously, we had this big drop off on Friday morning, followed by this walk up. We're having a little bit of a cool off. I think this probably presents some interesting opportunities for those on the indices traders. The bit that sticks out to me immediately is probably this zone here. As you can see, it's previously acted as resistance. If we put a line on there and probably make that line white, yeah, you can see that's probably quite an interesting area. All lines up. So this little area here may be an interesting zone to watch for the FTSE 100 for the index traders, and you potentially probably be targeting top of this wick and clearing this. If it clears that, then probably a clearance of this. Yeah, quite an interesting index. I don't know anyone who trades that, but it's there. Similar story. FTSE 200 looks fairly similar. Got this area here that you may revisit. Alternatively, yeah, this bit here, as you can see, you've got relative equal highs across here. It's previously acted as both support and resistance, so that would probably be the natural level around here. Fill in some of this before pushing up again, and you've got quite a nice area of invalidation there should you wish to trade it. And the 350 looks exactly the same. AIM market, however, is slightly different. This is quite an interesting one. Obviously, you had quite a strong resurgence on this. This is moving back into what was quite an interesting zone of accumulation. This might actually be one to keep on your list. I think if we see this pull down into this zone again and accumulate a little bit, you may then be looking for some quite nice upside opportunities. Certainly that's on the hourly. What does this look like on the weekly? On the weekly, yeah, you can see exactly the area you're looking at down to around here. Fill some of this in. Would it rerun this? This is a biblical run, but yeah, if you look back to sort of where it was tariffs, I think there's plenty of opportunity on this particular ticker were you to trade this. I don't particularly trade indices, nor do I particularly trade UK indices, but that's an interesting one nonetheless. What else have we got? As you can see, VIX somewhat muted this morning. This is something to watch. This is slightly elevated. Will be interesting to see if we see that continue to push up. On the currency side, what have we seen? So we have the BXY, so the British Pound Index, as you can see, relatively in line. This looks quite interesting, I think, certainly from a UK currency perspective. Obviously, with the budget and the turmoil coming up, or potential turmoil, sorry, foreshadowing any any of Reeves's announcements. This could be one to watch. Actually, I think we may see potentially a purge up here before a retracement. Yeah, definitely one to keep on the list. Same with this one, Swiss currency index. Yeah, nice little push up. And DXY again, still in this little range. Be interesting to see how this comes up. As you can see, if we look back, I had quite a strong Friday. But yeah, I definitely want to keep an eye on. What have we got? Forex pairings, what looks particularly strong? Euro looks particularly strong, particularly against the yen. Probably some good opportunities in this. If we go on to the 5 minutes, is there anything we can see? Yeah, you can see this morning it purged this low, took out this liquidity before pushing up. So definitely want to keep an eye on potential opportunities now to come and clear. Certainly, you've got the Asia high session up here. That's probably an area where you may see something get cleared. But yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on. Same with pounds. Yeah, as you can see, again, you've got a sweep of that potentially on the cards. Yeah, and anyone watching the stream that we had last week will have caught that beautiful trade. If you held the runner, I did not hold the runner, but if you held the runner, you'd have had a very lovely move, because we got in at what, 201-ish? Yeah, it was on this retracement wick here. I mean, a percentage move. It's not too bad. Crypto markets, however, are where everyone's focus is this morning. So having a look, we see Bitcoin. If I come out of here, come out of the 5 minute, and we'll go on to the 4 hour, what can we see? As you can see, came down, purged this box. We had that really sharp sell-off on Friday. And then if you watched the Wise Men show, we had longs here. As you can see, we begin to push up. We're hitting some resistance here. Personally, I think this is probably the area where you'd be looking at from an area of strength. I think this is an area where you'd be looking at from an area of strength. Potential shorts lay in this area. This is a slightly odd chart, but I think this is probably where I'd be looking at for potential shorts. So you'd, if I find the brush, you'd potentially be looking at a work up here into this box, purge it, and then potentially sweep around here is where I'm probably looking at this. But yeah, anyone who got into longs down here, I think they'll be looking relatively sweet. Ethereum, same story, different ticker. As you can see, nice little purge of this weekly. Again, taps this liquidity wick, pushing up. I see this potentially pushing up into this box here. And as you can see, this box is quite interesting because we had quite a lot of consolidation in this area before. So we may see a push up, purge here, another grab to the downside. This area potentially sticks out on first glance, so we may see a purge into there and then a push back up. But overall, quite positive. I actually think Solana's the interesting one. I think Solana here is really good, showing a lot of strength. As you can see, we're at what was previously a level of support. So we've got a nice little SR level here that we have begun to flip. I think first port of call to take out is probably these wicks up here. As you can see, we've probably got quite a nice back test up here. It feels quite positive, certainly if we go on to the weekly, the high time frame. If we look, you have a really nice pattern emerging here. So it'd be interesting to see if we can have a really nice push up. So if I find this, so much liquidity sitting up here. So we may see a push up into this level. And this may be quite a nice area for the people to take profit if you're already in. that would be a lovely move. Obviously, you're looking then at about 40% upside. So yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. What else do we have that is interesting? Dominant, not particularly my cup of tea, but as you can see, creeping up. What do we have on the stock market? Let's have a look. Microsoft, again, really nice consolidation on the weekly. I'm bearish on this. I think Microsoft feels like it's topping out a little bit. There's some nice opportunities if you're trading this. You've obviously got a nice liquidity zone here, so you've got potential long entry should you enter this zone. Got a nice little back test and support on the weekly. Should this push up, I think you potentially have a nice short around here. Failing that, if it pushes above, you've got quite a lot of liquidity to clear, so then you're looking at a run of all-time high. However, if I was playing this, I'd probably want to be looking for shorts around this area. Quite a nice area for scalping, and as you can see, it's got quite a nice range, so you can probably play the range quite well. What else do we have on the Mag 7? We have Tesla. I'm long on Tesla, full disclosure. My entry was 414, which I got down here. Currently looking at a nice retest of here on there. However, there's some really interesting areas to take profit here. And yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on. I am also in an Apple short, which isn't particularly good at the moment. So my entry was around the here. I do have some additional entry points here. I wouldn't like to see it get all-time high. As you can see up here, you've got 260. Feels to me like this thing, certainly on the weekly, is beginning to run a little bit out of steam. As you can see, came down, it's pushing up. I think you've got quite a nice area of invalidation. Obviously, you've cleared this liquidity here. You've had a rejection off. It's beginning a little push up. I think if it makes a new high here, it's probably a good area to invalidate. But yeah, I think this probably has an area to come down. And if you clear here, I think it gets a little bit scary if you clear here because you've got this massive fair value gap here where you may see levels of rescue that fall down here. What else am I in? Mag 7, Amazon. Everything's down today because of Amazon. AWS, how's that doing? I think Amazon looks one of the weakest off the Mag 7. I'm not sure I'd want to be shorting here because I think the short's already gone. The short for me was here, certainly on the daily. It does get a little bit scary below here, though. I think you're looking for support. If you're looking for a nearer term trade, I think if you're targeting a retracement of here, you've potentially got a nice area. Potentially got a nice area of liquidity here of which to short from a little bit more power. So you'd probably then be looking, push up into here, and then a purge down, close this gap. And you'd probably be looking for some support here around 188. Yeah, so there's some interesting areas to look out for on that. I do think this is the weakest of the Mag 7 though. So definitely want to keep on the list. Another thing to note, Tesla obviously has earnings this week, which will be interesting. Wednesday, I believe it's after. Let's have a look. I believe it's after hours. Yeah. So Wednesday after session is Tesla results. So that could be quite interesting depending on how it goes. We may see a purge down back here if they're far off their results. So yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on. Nvidia, again, I feel like this is just distributing now. I'm short on this. I think you've got quite a nice short opportunity here. You've got quite a lot of resistance at this area. If it clears this area, I think you're looking probably at a sweep of this before pushing back down. But as you can see, I think from an intraday trading point of view, you have some quite good opportunities. You've probably got a nice shorting area from around here and looking at a nice take profit zone of here. Should this fail to hold, I think then you're looking for some take profits around here, which would represent quite a nice move. I mean, from where we are now, that would represent a 5% move. So yeah, plenty of opportunity in there. The one stock that I am currently in a position on, this is quite a fun stock to trade actually, is HIMS. So as you can see from a range perspective, this has played the range fantastically. We had this push up. I got a lovely short in from here, but my take profit was here. So this is moving down a little bit, but as you can see, it's into this second liquidity zone. It's found a bounce, which is quite interesting. I think we may see a little bit of consolidation similar to what we had here in here, but I think you've got quite a nice opportunity, certainly on this. I think if you're not already in, I do think there is some good long opportunities on this, especially if you want your entries a little bit lower than what it is pre-market, if you expect it to cool a little bit. So you probably have entries around $50, $49 if it revisits, maybe even some aggressive orders in this wick here. And you've got this final liquidity zone here. So if you wanted to play, I don't know, if you wanted to play a little bit of a larger position, if you were targeting a rerun of here, I put too many on here. So if I get rid of that. So if you're targeting a rerun of these wicks, if I move this up here, you can see probably you can cover quite a lot of here. You can probably cover quite a lot of this up here with some layered entries, but I think there's some quite nice opportunity. I think it gets very scary though on this if this doesn't hold. I think if this doesn't hold here and you see a retracement, you're then looking for some support around here. Below that, here. So this is a chart that's got quite a lot of gaps. I think if it breaks out of this range and falls below, I think at that point you're probably looking at a retest further down. This also would be a nice area. And this area is quite interesting because this is long-term support and resistance. So that would be that $25 would make a full market retest. So I will get rid of all of those. But yeah, HIMS is a really interesting one. I quite like this. And I think this one is a nice stock that will give you, it'll give you quite a few nice moves. As you can see, it got absolutely hammered on Friday, down just shy of 16% on the day. Not pretty at all. But yeah, fun stock to trade should you wish to. Obviously famous for their little blue pills that they offer. But yeah, really interesting one. Robinhood, as you see, nice little push up. I was targeting 122 for a long. It came quite close in pre-market on Friday's dump. As you can see, a nice push up. I think you probably have some more opportunities on this, certainly on the short side. I think if you saw a push up to here, this could make for an interesting move back down, obviously clearing this area here. I'm not entirely sure it's going to rerun these highs anytime soon. I feel like it needs to dip a little bit lower. So certainly from a long side opportunity, you've got 122, got 115, and should that not hold, you have a really interesting belt here that may be enough to provide the fuel to send that upwards. What else do we have on the list? Treasury companies. This one's moved up really nicely, actually. I'm slightly annoyed because this is one that I was looking at. But if you're bullish on Ethereum, this found quite a nice level here. And as you can see, it's bounced back off. This is an interesting one. As you can see, similar to HIMS, you've got quite a nice range play. So you may be looking at some potential shorts should you get up there. What else? Coinbase is up pre-market again. I mean, look at that, just a long off there. Potentially a short from here if it pushes up. Yeah, again, similar range play up here, maybe a rejection off here and back down. What else is there? What's this thing doing? This is really interesting. Obviously, this is a really strong growth stock. It's not closed this gap. As you can see, it's pushed up pre-market after what was quite an aggressive sell-off. This is one to keep an eye on. This may break an all-time high, but I think you probably, given the volatility and the profit taking on this, you probably have some opportunities if it pushes up to all-time high and begins to exhaust. You're looking at a pushback down. Similarly, yeah, if it pushes up here, fails to make a new all-time high, I think then at that point you can probably target some downside, certainly closing this gap. But you've got a fair value gap there. You've got that, which looks pretty scary. So you then might be looking at support all the way down here, which would be a pretty scary move. I mean, if you went from there down to there, you're looking at about a 40% move to the downside. Again, this is quite an interesting stock that will move. You'll get quite a lot of movement on this. If I get that off, you'll get quite a lot of movement on this intraday. So this is quite a good one to trade. What else do we have? I'm really bullish on Baba. I think Chinese stocks represent a really interesting zone. Obviously, from an AI perspective, they are challenging Nvidia, and I think Chinese stocks are certainly trading at a discount enough that makes the geopolitics a little bit more interesting. And the beauty of this is, whilst this is priced in dollars, it's a non-dollar generating. So obviously you're generating money in the Chinese yen. I actually think this is quite attractive. I think as a chart, if you can get a retest, of around here, I think that's probably quite a good entry down into here and then push back up. And then you probably from the highs be targeting there, targeting there, targeting there. And I mean that would be a lovely move. Obviously you're clearing out what were COVID highs. So that would right. I think I'm back. So if I am, then welcome back. What else do I have on the list? Duolingo. This thing very fun to trade, as you can see on the weekly. It respects this quite well. I think as you can see, this may be a little bit too late, but you have some interesting shorts as it enters this liquidity zone. And I think you've potentially got a nice long either here or a final aggressive spot on this. This is a really interesting point, as this has been where we've wicked down to before the moves up. As you can see, it came down here. I didn't take an entry on this. I wish I had. But I think if it comes back down to this yellow line, you've got quite a nice entry. And some invalidation, because if it dips below here, you're probably looking for a dip in here. What else do I have on my list that is interesting? MicroStrategy. I am long on this. I am long on this. I took a long position inside this box. As you can see, we're still hovering there. But I think we're probably looking at quite a nice move should we see some sustained buys on Bitcoin. Yeah, what other stocks have I got that's interesting? This thing is an absolute monster. Up again, another 20%, flipping heck. This one is one that I have my eyes on. I bought some yesterday. This is Bitcoin mining equipment manufacturer. As you can see, some really interesting zones of entry there, pushed up. Nice rejection off there, rebuy in here, and then a repush back up. So this one may be a one to note, not one I'd want to be shorting, but as you can see, you've got liquidity zones and back tests that you can take up here. I think ultimately any retracement back on this probably is an interesting buy. What else? I think this is about it. I think there's some really interesting stocks on this list that I could go through for ages. I'm trying to think of what is interesting. BBAI. What's this doing? This thing's really motoring through now. There's a massive liquidity patch here that it's wicking into to try and take. I think once it chews through that, you're probably looking at quite a nice move. However, before that, I'd probably like to see a retracement, maybe back to here or a full retest of here. Chipotle, slowly moving up, not really one to note. Circle. I think Circle's interesting. I think once it clears this zone properly and you have some closes above, you then may be looking at a retest of this zone here. Iron, again, absolute monster. I think with the power of this, you're probably looking at any retracements from a spot perspective seem to be a buy until it shows signs of beginning to distribute. I think this is a case of buying dips and holding on should you wish to play that. Similarly with this, as you can see, pushing up, that's a pretty interesting weekly wick. So it'll be interesting to see how much of that it can chew through. I think this is beginning to burn out a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see how much fuel this has left. I wouldn't want to be shorting here. If I was shorting this, potentially I'd want to be shorting from up here, should it have that next push up. Oracle, this is beginning to look quite scary now. Do I want to stand in the way of AI stocks? Probably not. However, you've got that, which is quite a fairly scary gap on the weekly. And as you can see, the size of these wicks, wouldn't surprise me if you see a pushback up, clear some of here, and then a push back down. At some point, this will be very, very bloody. It wouldn't surprise me if in a crash we see this fully go and clear all of this bottom area down here. I think that's about it. I think there's some really interesting opportunities. I've got some interesting ones on the watch list that I will be sharing. But I think if you're trading stocks, I think there's some really interesting opportunities. Soon. This as well, again, feels like it's running out of steam a little bit. So you've potentially got a nice shorting area up here. If it pushes through, then you're into price discovery. So it'll be interesting to see how long that can sustain. But yeah, similar with CoreWeave, interesting area to short from. interesting area to long from. Currently sat mid-range, so I wouldn't want to touch it. This week the level could be interesting if it gives you the opportunity. But yeah, I think that's it from me this morning. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and yeah, happy trading. Take care.